Definitely enjoy these weekly conversations with Zach Smith on Menace to Sports, breaking down college football with us each week and giving us his take from a tremendous background. And Zach, how's it going today?
It's going great. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing well. 60 degrees here in Connecticut for about 3 straight days, and now we've plunged back into the 20s and snow everywhere. So, it's we got the tease, and now we're hoping that winter's short-lived. So we'll make it. We'll make it to the finish line here.
For sure.
Zach, I wanted to hit you up on this. Recruiting's nonstop, especially for the big programs, but for everyone, recruiting is nonstop. It's got to be part of the culture, part of the program. And it's just intriguing to me. Just had a conversation with another writer concerning the grind of the coach, where we just, your typical fan just thinks about football season, maybe spring practice, maybe just a few other stops along the way. But man, it's a nonstop cycle the entire year. And I hate to admit, I've been covering this for 30 years now. I'm not on the field at the practices in the press box like I used to be at different stops. But my goodness, I even get surprised from time to time when I'm reminded, okay, there was a recruiting weekend. There was a zillion different camps going on this weekend where coaches had to be, where this is not just spring football in August camp in the season. It's winter workouts, it's individual workouts, it's flying all over the place recruiting, it's flying all over the place for these camps. It's a never-ending grind.
It's never ending. And I think right now is kind of that time. It's that quiet time, where everything's behind the scenes. Once the second signing day, or whatever you want to call the February, what always used to be National Signing Day, now is like an afterthought. After that is when coaches really go into that, that they go into that bunker with their guys, their players, and development happens, because people assume that the offseason starts pretty much after the season. They get a break, about a week and a half, 2-week break before they start training again. But like you said, coaches are gone. I mean, coaches are gone the whole month of January, flying all over the country. When they do come back in town, they're having official visit weekends. There's not really windows to work with your guys, your actual players. So February into March, that's where you really see that development, that hands-on development from position coaches, from, doing position drills, position work, meeting in the classroom, teaching football, getting kids ready for spring ball, and getting those veterans to take that step, and those young guys to really learn the foundation to maybe, possibly contribute. So February was my favorite time of year outside of the weather. You can't avoid that, but, just a chance to, and I talked about it on my show this morning, when you get in spring ball, there's so much going on, so much football to teach, so much, to manage when you're coaching 12 guys. If you're a receiver coach or an O-line coach coaching 16 guys, there's so much going on. It's hard to develop an individual player, right? Outside of just natural development through meetings and team drills and stuff like that. This is where you really, as a position coach, can sink your teeth into each individual kid and work on their unique weaknesses and strengthen their unique strengths. Because if you look at any player in the country, they need something different than their counterpart. Like at Ohio State, Jackson Smith and Jigba needs a whole different plan than Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Just because they're different players. It's hard to do that in spring ball when you're coaching 12 guys. So this is that time of year when it's really fun for a position coach to develop. And if that's your passion, which was always mine, I love February. It's a great time. But recruiting, definitely, people lose sight of the fact that when season's over, season is the grind of all grinds. I mean, you're talking about 140, 150-hour work weeks. And then when that ends, people assume like, oh, good, the offseason, now you get a break. It's like, no. You got 4 straight weeks where you don't even see your bed. So it's like the real, I wouldn't call it a break, but where you return more to a normal life is right now, where the weekends are truly off. Like you truly don't go to work Saturday and Sunday. Well, I guess I say that you're there Saturday morning usually with your guys, and then you have the rest of the weekend off. But it's a nice breath of fresh air when you hit February to spend a Sunday morning going to church with your family.
Coach Zach Smith, you got to track him on Twitter, follow him on Menace to Sports, really good stuff. Podcast released every day on all the major platforms, Menace to Sports. All right. The recruiting is also maybe a misnomer for a lot of people that are even, pretty ardent college football fans that just think the guys from Ohio State and Clemson and Alabama just show up and they show the rings to the recruits and bring them on campus, show them the fancy facilities, and it's easy and dotted line and we're good to go. They're impressed, so they're coming. It's a relationship building process. So, give us an idea of how that works, some of the more interesting stories or just kind of that process of taking a recruit through the year or two and building that relationship and getting them to the point where they trust you enough to sign.
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with identification, because it's easy to sit here and just look at like 247 Sports or any of these services and just look at their list and say, all right, you just start at one and work your way down. When in reality, I mean, as refined as those services have gotten, and they've gotten a ton better since I started in 2006 or 2005, they've gotten better at evaluation. They've got better at ranking. They've really done a good job developing their own eyes on how to identify recruits, because back in the early 2000s, you would look at a list and just, as a coach, scratch your head like, how did they come up with this list? Like, this is so out of order. So they've gotten better, but at the same time, they're not always right. They're not trained football coaches that do this, 24 hours a day and work with athletes and really develop your own sense of how to evaluate a kid. I mean, in my 15 years, I got much better, mainly from coaching, right? You identify players, you bring players in, then you work with that player, and then you kind of learn like, okay, well, these were the deficiencies that maybe I overlooked or didn't see. And now you develop an eye for a great player. So it starts with identification. Those services obviously help you find the absolute freak of natures out there that just are kind of, everyone's going to recruit them. But outside of that, it's after identification, it's really, you got to go into evaluation, like not only who is a good enough player or potentially great player, but who has the intangibles, who has the mentality, who has the personality that's going to thrive in your unique place, right? Going to Georgia or going to Alabama is very different from going to Notre Dame or Ohio State. You could be a first rounder at any of those places. You could be a great player. You could win at a national championship at any of those four schools. But the right kid has to pick Ohio State. There's kids that go to Florida that would not succeed at Ohio State and vice versa, right? So it's about evaluating how good a kid is and is it a good fit? And then you can hit the nail on the head with relationships. It's kind of a lost art in recruiting nowadays. And it's kind of, I don't want to say it's phasing out, but recruiting is becoming a national landscape where you're all over the country picking kids, and you have to develop relationships with the kid and his support system. But what's becoming a lost art is developing relationships within a community and a school. And that was what I always loved to do, is go down to South Florida and build relationships with coaches so that when they had a great player come up, you knew they were going to help you at least get in the mix. Because like you said, it's not just flash some rings and facilities and the kid signs. I mean, when you talk about a great player, you're at Ohio State, you're at Alabama, you're going toe to toe with the absolute best of the best. I mean, it is like you would imagine the high roller, high stakes poker room is in the best Vegas casino. You walk in and it's like, whoa, like I'm recruiting against the best salesman in college football. So I better be on my game and I got to do something better than all of them, right? To land this kid. And every kid's journey is different. Like the 5-star kid that everyone's recruiting, that's more an arms race and a sales pitch, right? And finding, we always used to say you have to find the influential role or person in that kid's life, and you never know who it's going to be, because sometimes mom and dad are it's kind of, their mom and dad, they provide for the kid, but they're not the one that has his ear, right? It might be his position coach on the high school team. It might be I had a situation where it was the janitor who was just cool with all the athletes, and that guy really advised the kid where he thought was best for him. It's who is that kid going to listen to? You have to find them, and you have to connect with them. You have to build a relationship with them. So when that kid comes to him and says, "What do you think?" They say, "I really think you should go to Ohio State." That's all you need. But finding that person and then building that relationship, that's where the real legwork is. But like I said, every player is different. I mean, from the kids that are kind of diamonds in the rough, we have Malik Harrison, who was a city of Columbus kid that played linebacker. He didn't know he was coming out. He thought he was a receiver recruiting, and we took a shot on him because Luke Fickle and I evaluated him. And we said, I don't know what he is, but he's a really talented kid. He ended up being a draftable linebacker, right? And then there's the stories of, the Justin Fields. Everyone knew him. No one was confused that he was an elite talent. That's a whole different recruiting pitch than it is for, a diamond in the rough type of kid.
And this Chris Olave story has become famous in regards to, oh, we're scouting somebody else. Who is this guy?
Right. And what happens is, revisionist history is a heck of a thing, because then they come back and say, well, Chris Olave was a 4-star. He was a top 20 receiver in the country. It's like, yeah, but not when we found him. He was nobody. I mean, he had like a Utah and a San Diego State offer. And once Ohio State offers, everyone else offers, then he gets bumping ratings. And all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, he was a 4-star. You're like, no, not so fast. He became a 4-star because we found him. Right.